Started it at the dining room table. The dining room table is sat over there in the sales area. We are working with the Hut Group, Vimto, Puma.
Since you've moved in, what's it been like?
I mean, like productivity, we're not driving all the time because people want to come and see us. I'm hearing more of what's going on. We're just a happier place.
Yeah, because one thing I couldn't get my head around was where was my space to relax and where was my space to work.
I don't know if I can even articulate all the ways it's helped.
Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode of Taking Care of Business. My name is Paul Cheetham and today I've invited back with me again, owner of Make Events, Holly Moore.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
So we're going to mix it up. You did in fact you was the very first interview. You was episode 2 of the first series, but we're going to mix it up a little bit today. So this is the second episode of the 4th series, and some of the feedback that I've been given is that it's become more of an interview than a podcast, which I think is fair. And the reason I do that is because I don't really want to do, you listen to these podcasts.
Yeah.
I think you have people who put podcasts out to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe I've gone the other way where it's become more of an interview and more of a life story, and that's kind of what we did with you. So what we're going to do in this series is we're going to do a mixture still of people who do maybe, 45-minute, an hour long live stories, but I'm going to mix them up with something like what we're going to do today, which is more of a podcast and more of a chat, but more defined than at a certain thing.
Yeah.
So today's topic, I guess, is going to be using your workspace to inspire, to create a culture, and whether or not you think it's a good thing to do. And I know you've done that, and we've done something similar. So I think it'd be interesting to go through how we set about and why Sedulo's done what it's done, and then why Make Events has just launched in this office here.
Yeah, brilliant.
So that's what we're going to do. So before we start about that, for people who don't know, have not heard of Make Events, or don't follow you on social, so don't know everything about yet, tell us a little bit about Make Events, and just go a bit about Make Events.
So Make Events is a corporate agency established 7 years. Our vision is to be the go-to agency for the North's household names. So we are working with a lot of the North's household names. So for example, the Hut Group, Vimto, Puma, Citation, PZ Cousins. So we've got a lot of names that people would recognise that we work with, and we deliver their events programme, whether it's to engage customers or to engage colleagues. We work kind of two-pronged that way. And we've also got Make Events Venue Finding. So that is a service where anybody can call up with, they don't need to have an event service, they need to just book venues across the country and internationally, and we'll look for that business for them. That's a free service. And then we also have HM Events, which is for private events, any crazy party event or wedding that requires high maintenance. And that will generally be, it might be a corporate client that wants, a housewarming, a 50th birthday, something like that. So we've got 3 businesses, all run from here. And we've been going 7 years.
And it's fast growing, isn't it? Because we discussed, I think you had 5 or 6 staff maybe 18 months ago.
Yeah, I think we took a real push. So sort of 18 months ago, we were at 7 contracted employees, which is always the way that I've wanted to go. And now we're at 16 and we're recruiting for 2 more headcount. I think really we spent 5 years really grounding ourselves, and then I feel like 5 years, and a lot of people say that 5 years, it feels like a proper business, and obviously from that point on we've kind of really started to take it seriously, grow the brand, grow the client base, the colleague base, and everything that we're doing. So I think it's ramped up in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So we'd already just had this conversation, or we started the conversation in my first office. So first of all, you started at your house.
I did.
Same as me. But mine lasted like 4 weeks because one thing I couldn't get my head around was where was my space to relax.
Yeah.
And where was my space to work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't from a physical thing, it was from like a mental thing. So I have this thing where I leave the house, and I've got a bit of OCD. So I leave the house and everything looks very neat and very tidy and very organised, so that no matter what chaos happens in a day, I walk back into it and it's all tranquil and calm. So when I worked from my house, I just couldn't get my head around yeah, what was I supposed to be calm right now? So I had to get rid of it.
Was it just you at your house, or more than one of you?
I'm trying to think actually, back that far. When I think there was actually no, I tell you it was me and my mate.
Yeah.
Actually, my best mate lived with me, and you've met him
Oh,
since
yeah.
Dean.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And we couldn't be more different. So his nights and weekends were a lot different than mine. So yeah, and that's why I probably had to get out of the house, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I did that. Then I went and set up in the city centre of Manchester. And I think even the story behind that's interesting because I just left a job.
Yeah.
Didn't have a clue whether or not I was going to be able to run a business or what was going to happen. And the first thing I did was went straight onto Deansgate, took about 2,500 square foot, signed a 5-year lease.
That's quite a big move at that
I can't
stage.
remember how much the lease was at the time, but I was just saying to you before off the camera, we had no money. So the first thing I did in business was I got a 20 grand credit card.
Yeah.
And to look like I was successful, I bought a Rolex. that was half the money gone. And the rest of it was to fund legal fees, computers, setting it up, and to put some office equipment and desks in. And as I was just explaining to you, my first office looked like it was like what's the hotel you said before?
Malmaison.
It was like that, but gone very wrong. So I felt like a boudoir with like nice red drapes, gold drapes. Yeah.
Velvet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like something out of the 60s, I think, in the end. And we had fabric everywhere. I remember the boardroom table was like 8 foot long. I think we paid 50 quid for it. It looked like a shark had bit, half of it was hanging off. But we just covered everything with this red velvet fabric. And that's what it looked like. And I said to you before, one of my biggest regrets is we never had pictures
I know.
of that, because how it's progressed over the period of time, it's just a shame we haven't got that evolution really.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was a big thing for me to go straight in 2,000 square foot on the centre of Deansgate. I'm not sure what made me do that, but I guess it meant from the start I was always going to put myself under pressure.
Yeah.
I was under pressure from day one. What was yours?
So I was living in Wilmslow and started it at the dining room table. The dining room table is sat over there in the sales area. And because at that time, we had a small collection of props, we used my garden shed as the prop house. And then Sue, who was my first member of the team, it was really important for that first member of the team for me to massively trust, because I was working from home and I'd known Sue at that stage, like 15 years, something like that. But we always laugh because I don't know about you, but when I first started the business, my head was going crazy all the time. I had ideas all the time. All I wanted to do was work. So I'd be up till 5 o'clock, and then I'd probably have a glass of wine at like 9, work through till midnight, and then be up again. And I remember one morning, and you would literally try and get fit as much. The gym went out the window, everything. I just wanted to work all the time. And one morning, Sue came in, and I came downstairs, and I just totally forgot myself, and I was in a towel and had like a towel turban on my head, and she was barked a load of orders at her, and she was like, "So is this how we're working today then? Is this what's?" And I was like, something's got to change. So I don't think it's that healthy working from home in a sense, because you don't stop, do you? So we worked from there from July 12 to March 14. And actually, funny enough, so the shed, the first summer that Sue was with me, 2013, it was like cracking the flags, the weather. So Sue was continually like volunteering to do all the props, and she got like the best tan of her life. So when we opened the office, the stationery cupboard is called Sue's Shed, after Sue, and that was a really nice surprise for her. So yeah, she shed a little tear when she saw her shed being brought back to life.
So you did 1.5 years from your house?
Yeah.
And you found, I mean, your very first clients were big clients, so that didn't stop you winning clients, did it?
Well, no, so we got an address at mailboxes, and I just visited all the clients and kind of, I haven't thought about that for ages. I kind of got away with it, I think. I think if anybody asked, we said we had an office at home. Didn't realise we were like working in the dining room. But then even actually the first office we took, which I know we'll come on to, you never would have had clients there. So we've always just gone out to venues and clients as much as possible. But then that's not that productive either sometimes.
What made you move from your house then in the end?
We took on somebody else. We got a unit first. That was the first thing we did, which was like 350 quid a month, and I was panicking. So we got a unit to
Can you imagine that?
And then some offices were like next door to the unit. But the first office we took was literally the size of like a garage, and we had by the time we in there we had 7 desks, which were like £11 desks from IKEA. So I think it was just space that we needed to move out, but we didn't move out extravagantly at all. It was just because I used to panic at what stuff would cost,
Yeah.
as you know.
So I'm just trying to think. Our middle office then was. Did you ever come to our middle? You didn't ever come to our office.
I wouldn't have asked you to be my accountants if you had red velvet.
No, well, we moved on from
decor.
there. So we'd moved on from there because I had a split with my business partner, and I had to carry on the end of the lease. And then I went to Lock 90, it was called, on Deansgate Locks on the canal.
Yeah.
And that was like, the day I walked in that office was like, I'd have felt like I'd arrived, because I'd gone from, I was in Barton Arcade, by the way, my first one, which, if anyone knows it, man, it's a beautiful building. But in them days, it's been done up now. It was very old.
Opposite where you are now.
It is, yeah. But all the, because it's such an old listed building, they can't do anything with it. So when it rained, it just rained, and they would never be able to fix a roof. So it was always like wet through, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when we moved to our own premises, Lock 90, we had upstairs, downstairs, there's meeting rooms, boardrooms, just didn't have any of that. So it felt like we'd really arrived as a business. But I think the thing is, and I discussed this with you last time, what I've always done, I was discussing it with a client as well yesterday, what I've always done is I've moved up the kind of rankings in the properties, but I've signed a long lease.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will go, I'm going to take an extra cost, so I'm going to do a 3-year lease. Or I'll do a 5-year lease with a 3-year break, which basically is just a 3-year lease, isn't it? So, but the problem with that is you don't get much rent free.
Yeah.
So what I always did in all the offices we've been, as we've kept kind of going up, is sign the longest lease we could. So if you do a 10-year lease, you should really get a year rent free. Or 2 years half rent. And that 2 years half rent was the same effectively as the full rent I was paying on the one before, but I was now in a much better place, and it could get better talent and all the rest of it. So we moved to Lock 90, and we was there, I think we ended up doing maybe 7 years there in the end. But again, it was still upgrade. It was an upgrade from what we had before. So yes, we had a fridge in there where you could have a glass of wine or a beer. We made sure there was sweets and but so even all the, you know, there was nice red couches. It felt like using a marketing agency, but on the budget that we could afford. That's kind of where we progressed to. So you went from your house to...
Yeah, but you like to put yourself under pressure though, don't you? So as well, like taking the long lease, you think that forces you to, like, it gives you that commitment in your head that you're in it for the long haul, and you...
Well, I think you become what you think you are.
Yeah.
So if you sit yourself in an old decrepit office, you end up a business that can't... This is why I think it's so crucial.
Yeah.
And we've discussed this. We'll move on to that in a bit. But I think you become who you think you are.
Yeah, I agree.
I think if you want to be someone in the future, start fucking acting like you now.
Yeah.
As an individual.
Yeah.
So if you want to be like Richard Branson, you got to start acting like him now. You got to start looking at his mannerisms and what they do. And I think if you want to, in business, look like a business that feels and looks like that, you've got to act like them.
Yeah.
But you haven't got the money to.
Yeah.
So you've got to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
The trade-off with me was put myself under pressure to sign a 10-year lease means I'm going to look like the business I want to be, but for the same price as what I'm paying now.
Yeah.
And then I have to put myself under pressure to grow into it. You was a total opposite. Because I came to your offices.
So we took this tiny office, and then so we were there from March 14 to December 15, and then there was a slightly bigger office in the building, which we thought was like mega exciting. We kept it as a secret from the girls, and then at our Christmas drinks in December, we pretended we'd booked out a meeting room within this office building and took them into their new office. Then I was being distracting because I talked too much. So we suggested that I got a smaller office, which then became the boardroom, which I think was a bad move. I wish I hadn't done that. But you try these things. Yeah. Then we got even more people, so we took another office. So by the time we left, which was only obviously in April of this year, we were in 3 offices separately, which was totally, as you know, not the culture. But I wanted to be in a position, as you know, I wanted to be in a really strong financial position that we could afford to move and be there for a few years and pay for it even if we got no business, which I know is a stupid way to think about it, but that's how I think. And then we started to discuss, didn't we, office space probably about 2 years ago, and we looked at potentially Manchester and all the different options. And I'm glad I waited, because in the end, we've settled on Wilmslow, but right by the train station. And I'm sure we'll go into it, but a lot of other thought process around that. So I feel that when we made the move, it felt like 100% the right decision. It felt like the right decision, and it felt like the brand had grown enough and the team was established enough that the brand was going to come right through all the space. Whereas I think when we first started talking about an office 2 years ago, I was maybe slightly unsure of what that brand was going to be.
Yeah. Do you think it held you back being there?
I don't think it held us back, but I think that, because it's hard to say, isn't it? Yes, I think all the pluses for being here, which we'll talk about, will help growth without a doubt. But was I quite ready to grow in the way we are now? Probably not. So I just believe it has all happened at the right time.
Yeah.
So it's probably slowed the last couple of years a little bit, but probably for me and where I've been personally and in business, I think it's the right time to have moved with the right people as well. Yeah.
And again, I think that there is slight differences between you kind of had to feel really settled.
Yeah.
You had to feel like everything was really, particularly financially, you have to feel like, whereas my next move, looking back, was a massive risk, but I didn't feel it at the time, because I was actually quite happy where we were.
Yeah.
I had 2 years left on my lease.
Yeah.
And the landlord of my previous landlord at Barton Arcade just met me for a coffee and said, I bought this building over the road. I was like, okay, fine. And he said, do you want to come and have a look at it? I was like, I had a look at it. And he's like, do you want to move here? I was like, I've got a 2 year lease left, but it'd be great if we could, but I'd not thought about it because we've got 2 years left to run on it. And I don't know what happened, but the next day he rang me again. He said, you sure you don't want to move to this building? And I was thinking, why is he asking me that? Because I've got 2 years left on my lease. I can't get out of it. I'm in it. And it was, I don't know, £5,000 a month or something was the lease. I think there, which at the time we probably turned over £1 million, something like that. So it was a fair chunk.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I don't know what happened, but then my mind started to race about what I could do. So I spoke to him and I was like, what's the space? And he's like, you can have 8,000 square foot now. So I think it was probably at 3,500, 3,000 maybe. 8,000 square foot plus a rooftop garden, which some reason fruit swung it a little bit.
There's not really much office space around in Manchester where yours is, with that kind of space and natural light and original features.
That was the thing. Then I started to like the building.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, for like 9,000 square foot or something, I should have maybe 100 staff in there.
Yeah. And how many did you have when you moved?
23.
Yeah.
So then he came to me and said, if I did it, first of all, we've got 2 main floors. One floor would be empty, and the other floor would be 2/3 empty.
Yeah.
So it made no sense really what was going through my head, but I thought, well, what if we did a floor? And this was before WeWork had heard of WeWork.
Yeah.
I was like, what if we could do a floor where actually nobody works on it?
Yeah.
We just let all our clients work on it. We put a bar in there, a coffee shop or a lounge or something like that. We put it in and we just let people come in and visit us.
Yeah.
See what would happen. And then the guy, to be fair to him, said, if you sign a 10-year lease, I'll pay for the large chunk of that fit out. And that was it. So I agreed the deal with him for a 10-year lease for a space at...
It's way too big for you.
5-6 times the size, 6 times what we needed. When I was tied in a lease for 2 years that I couldn't get out of, so now I was still paying for that lease. And I signed the lease. But it was like the best thing we ever did. It was a massive risk looking backwards, but it completely changed our business. So I ended up doing a deal with the other guy, and just done the same in Leeds as well now, where I had to pay him, I don't know, I think I had to pay him 40-50 grand up front. I didn't have the cash.
Yeah.
But I got a bank loan to pay that. I got a bank loan to pay off a lease that I didn't need to get out of. Paid the lease off, and then we moved in. And within a year, our business had doubled in size, and obviously that's when we met you.
Well, that's how I became a client, because going back, one of my first run of events when I used to do ladies' lunches, Zeri, your wife, now wife, had a stand selling jeans and clothes with her dad at one of our Christmas ladies' lunches, and we kept in touch. And then actually she was one of the first events for Make Events, because she saw it set up and she was like, I've got this little fashion job, do you want to do it? And I was like, absolutely, because I want to get as much exposure like through social media as I can. So I did that for her at Rosso. And then I remember she posted photos on Facebook of your event space at the Sedulo offices, like the meeting rooms. And obviously, because we did have this crappy office in Wilmslow, in Cheadle, I said, oh my God, could I come in, do you hire meeting room space out? She said, well, we don't, but why don't you come and have a look at it? And then chatted to her, and I remember looking around going, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if one day we could afford to have an accountant like this? And then obviously when we spoke to you guys and realised what you do, it actually, you weren't out of reach to us. And I think what was really good for your business is we started off as like a really small account, and we were kind of thinking, why are you even interested in, working with us? And it's grown for you to have a really active role as a non-exec within the business. And I definitely believe that, we wouldn't be where we are now without Sedulo support. I mean, you massively encouraged me on the office, because you kind of said to me, I don't see a way it can't work for you. So, that next move from these 3 offices that were scattered around a building to here, I think from a strategic point of view, we really worked on that this been the right decision, and, what level of investment we put into it as well.
We'll talk in a minute how it's impacted your business, but I think one of the things that that you've done, which is similar to us, which is it's like you've put this authentic stamp. You just mentioned Sue's shed.
Yeah.
You've got your very first dining room table over there. And I think there's a big difference between, and I'm not saying for people don't get designers in, but I designed it with Zeri. So I got Zeri involved because she knows what I like. And I went round and designed it myself. And because of that, there's kind of a story behind everything. So in Manchester, we have a Walt Disney suite. You go in there, there's suites in there. But when I picked them suites, it took me 3 hours to pick which suites. Because what I felt like was, if we're not careful, we'd just look like a trendy accountancy practice, which every young entrepreneur in his 20s wants to come. And the reality of it is, no disrespect to them, they're the future, but they're not the people that pay your bills today. So I was thinking, there's a risk now. Not only have we got a financial risk, what if people walk in here and think, well, these are just a flash set of accountants. You can get a beer, they've got a bar, they just, we're in a traditional industry. So it worried me. So I put like so much time in. It took 3 hours just to pick the suites, because I wanted somebody to come in and see the suites who might have been 65 and think, fuck, I've not had an Uncle Joe's mint bar since my granddad took me fishing 30 years ago. And I went through, and it was like a meticulous detail. I went through to make sure that the risk that I was putting out there of kind of moving traditional accountancy firms into something new was minimised. So whereas we didn't get a design agency, we did it all ourselves. There's a story behind everything. That's why there's an old chalkboard in there, in the Steve Jobs suite.
Did you get that off eBay?
Yeah. He had to send Lee to Lincolnshire to pick that up on the back of his pickup. But people will walk in and say, I've not seen one of them since I last went to school in 1975. And it's a talking point for them. So we did that. But what you've done here, and you can talk us through now, what you've actually done and what you've designed.
So I think I'd been storing stuff for years just on a PowerPoint. So if I saw anything I liked, I'd just save it. And I also have, which is really sad, like a notebook. And if I see a quote I like, I've got headings like customer experience, sales, everything, every like emotion you could think of. And I save all the quotes. So I write everything down. So when we came to do this space, I'm good at the big vision and the ideas, but I'm like, how does that get built? And as you can see, like a lot of the furniture is bespoke. So my friend Tony luckily has got her own commercial interior design business. She's done stuff for like Google, Helly Hansen, Timpsons. So she came on as like a consultant. She said, you know the brand, you know what you want. And I even knew like really the layout, but she made it happen with her experience. So just some of the things we've got Kylie Minogue's dressing room, because she's like my favourite pop star ever. She's worked on an event with us, and we had to create her dressing room within like a day's notice. So we've got her dressing room. We've got Mrs. Hinch cleaning room. So for anyone that follows Mrs. Hinch on Instagram, all our cleaning products are Mrs. Hinch, and she's got her own room. The Starbucks thing was a big thing for us because I read an amazing book called Starbucks Saved My Life at the summer that I started to make events. And it was about a guy that lost his job in the financial industry. He's about 60, actually ended up then his wife and his family leaving him. And the only job he could get was a job in Starbucks. And it absolutely like rebuilt him. And if you read it, it's all about the training and the development behind Starbucks and how Starbucks was always created to be the third space. So that space between office and home, which I think is what I wanted to create at Make Events. So I read that, and I loved Starbucks anyway. I'm obsessed with coffee shops. So that I love the feeling. It kind of it ties you to a brand even more, because you imagine when you read that book, you imagine the Starbucks that you go into.
Yeah.
Then I read Onward by Howard Schultz, who is the CEO. He's only just stepped down of Starbucks. And what's amazing about that is all about customer experience, which is, you know, I'm massively passionate about. But also when Starbucks weren't doing as well and all the city were telling him he couldn't do an event, he was absolutely passionate that he would still do his leadership event, because he believes, like we do at Make Events, that bringing people together in a live event is the best way to communicate a strategy. So he was really passionate about that. And so when we did our internal company conference, our employee engagement conference, we used Onward, that book, as a thread through the whole conference, and we set up a pop-up fake Starbucks. And the team just loved it so much that we're like, we've got to have that in the offices. So we call it fake Starbucks, but it's like we don't let people eat at their desk anymore. So you see people socialising more and mixing. It's great for clients. We can use it as a coffee shop. We can use it as a bar for events. We've got our meeting rooms are Tony Robbins and Oprah Winfrey, who are like my two like motivational people that I love. And I came up with the idea of House of Make when I was at a Tony Robbins conference. What else have we got? We've got Daphne's coffee shop booths in one corner, if anybody remembers Neighbours. When I grew up, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to have a coffee shop like Daphne's. So it's got all those touches. There's quotes everywhere, and all the brand colours run all through the office. And yeah, it is a brand come to life in a space.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned about the coffee shop, because I'd signed for the lease on where we are now, and we started to kit it out. And now the first thing I did was just drop everything and let's start the clean canvas. I haven't got a clue how this is going to look. And we did it as we went along.
Yeah.
But we then went away to Barcelona for our Christmas do. So we take the staff away every year. And there was about 25 of us then. We went to an old tobacco factory turned into a boutique hotel. And I remember sat there thinking, we've got to fucking design this thing. We've got to move in it in I think February or March. And I haven't got a clue how it's going to look. But I just looked around and seen, like, for 2 or 3 days, we all just was like, all the staff was just chilled in this bar area.
Right.
And it had black and white stripes
I didn't know
with
that.
brown thingy with black. So I was like, Zoe, everybody's loving this.
Yeah.
Like, this is the best Christmas do so far. And everybody's relaxed in this environment.
Yeah.
Let's take this bar, this lobby area, back home to Manchester, to Sedulo. And that's how we did it.
It's amazing what you pick up on, isn't it? When, like, these, you've probably seen in the background, these like little tables. I was in Berlin with my mum and dad, and I'd just seen this. There was like a small seating area, and they had these pop-up tables. So I just took a picture, and it's seeing how people use space and what they enjoy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and we've tweaked it since, as I'm sure you have. We've just done like a second snagging version, just because I think as well, when you move into the space, you end up using it sometimes potentially in a different way than you thought you would, and you get feedback. So we've just done like a second snagging just to make a few tweaks. But yeah, it's funny where you get inspiration from for it, isn't it?
So coming right up to date, I mean, so when we did it, I felt like I'd arrived when I went to the second one. I felt like I'd really arrived when I did it. And when I look at your social now, it feels like, you know, I know I'm inside the business quite a bit, and I speak to you quite a bit, but it feels like the business has arrived now. And it feels like you've made a noise. And it feels like there's like an upswell of positive energy that's leading itself across all different things. Since you've moved in, what's it been like?
Well, so we brought the team when it was a blank office space. There was walls, but in different areas. And we said, we're going to let you see it, and then we'll bring you in on the day when we open. So we kept it all a secret. And then on the 22nd of May, we opened the doors to them, and it was just phenomenal. Faye, who's been with us a long time, who remembers being in that tiny office that was the size of a garage and working, sat on a beanbag with a cardboard box as a desk, burst into tears. She was like overwhelmed because she's been with us the whole journey. So that was amazing, getting the team's feedback. And then I think you said to me, you rang me, I think, on the day, because you were like, I know how you're feeling. You went, I just want to tell you something. What the statistics say, that you'll have this high and then you'll have a bit of a low. And I think it did happen to a certain degree, because in the old office, we didn't have to care about things really particularly. We had a communal kitchen, things like that. So there was a couple of weeks where we're just establishing, oh gosh, there's actually a bit of cleaning to do and a bit of tidying up to do. And, we've never had free drinks and food. So that was kind of a bit of an adjustment. And then I think now we're really finding our groove with it. And I think what's happened is current clients are coming to see us. So that's brilliant, because they can see that we're growing. If we're investing, they give us confidence as a company. Prospect. So I do quite a lot of prospecting. I did a lot of social media on it, and it's been an easier invite to get people to come here. We did an event for our neighbours, because we'd obviously caused a bit of noise when we moved in, so that's brand awareness. So I mean, like productivity, we're not driving all the time because people want to come and see us. It's open plan. I don't have an office, so I'm hearing more of what's going on. I mean, I said to you, didn't I, do you think I've done enough on social media about it? And you were like, yeah, I think you have.
I had to switch you off.
Yeah, no, you said I need to write about something negative from it. So yeah, I don't know if I can even articulate all the ways it's helped, but even just like the team being able to walk into town, and that we're right by the train station for Manchester and London. We've done exactly the same as you. We've got too much space, but as you know, we want to grow to 30 people. We can do that comfortably here. Because we've got meeting rooms, the odd company, we've had the Olympics Association, British Cycling, the NHS have come and use the meeting room space. So it's massive brand awareness as well. We're just a happier place. Yeah.
You've just mentioned that you don't have your own office.
Yes.
And I don't have an office.
Yeah.
Well, how come you prefer it like that?
Well, I think I felt like I'd been cut off a little bit when I had my own office, and I know there was a bit of a deliberate reason behind that, because we took on a management team, and I thought I want them to embed themselves within the team and grow, and not have me over their shoulder all the time. But actually, I think I lost touch with a little bit of what was happening, and I was going to have my own office. But you said to me actually at one of our management meetings something about, I just don't. You didn't say. You think I shouldn't, but sometimes you don't think that that's what businesses should do. And it sort of sat with me a little bit. So, and I'm so glad I didn't, because we've got enough boardrooms that if I want to go and have a bit of quiet time, I can. But I feel so much more in touch with the business, and I feel like I can catch up on things quicker. Whereas before it was like I'd have to have a meeting to talk about something. I can just pick up on stuff. So I much prefer being back in the office. I still talk too much, but that's not going to change.
How important do you think it is then? How important to kind of where you are now? I mean, to us, our office is like, it's almost everything to us. You know what I mean? It allows us to get the best talent.
Yeah.
Clients love it. There was a point where I thought, well, clients just think we're flashy.
Yeah.
But they don't really think we're flashy. They enjoy it.
Yeah.
It allows you to put on events. We have events on all the time. So for us, it's like major. We've been nowhere near where we were now.
Yeah.
We put on events and people go, what's your return on investment on those events? And I go, dunno. And they go, well, how do you know it's worth it? Then you spend 50 grand a year on feeding your staff or whatever it is that we now cost now. And I remember we did an England versus Wales game in our Manchester office, and I met Leighton. Leighton's now a partner of the firm. I reckon his business unit's done 2.5 million quid in the 2.5 years since.
That's amazing.
So if you put that in, I know other clients that came that pay us 40, 50, but in a way, I think people can get bogged down into like focusing on what that return on investment is going to be, rather than just making the business what visually it should look like. And it's interesting what's happening in our industry. Your industry's got a bit more flair about it than ours. But we've got all these accountants and solicitors and recruitment, professional services, not just accountants. And what they're trying to do is a very watered down version of what we've done.
Yeah.
And I don't think that'll work.
Yeah.
How important is it to you?
Oh, now we're here. I think, you know, as
Did you go back to working
No.
in your offices
No
in Cheadle?
way. No way. And now I'm like, oh, do we need more meeting room space? And,
Yeah.
you know, things. Oh, it's just, you know, we bring brands to life. That's what we do with events. And I think this proves that we understand brands. And I think we've gone with, like you say, I know everyone uses this buzzword of authentic,
Yeah.
but I've always been I've told the story of Make Events through LinkedIn particularly, and I get feedback that people enjoy it. I'm sure not everybody does, but I think when people saw that we'd made this move, I think they were really happy for us. And I also think that because we did wait essentially 6.5 years, I think, you know, it was a symbol to the fact that it's not just, you know, like you said, it's not just a flash in the pan move to look flash or have a flash office. It's a really, really considered move, and it's been done with financial stability.
Yeah.
Because I need to sleep at night, and I do, and you know, there's nothing bad at the moment. There's nothing bad I can say about it at all. I love it, and the team love it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they love a prosecco on a Monday, and things like that.
On a Monday.
Monday they'll open prosecco.
Oh.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
Fair enough. Right, the future then. That's we're coming towards the end. But what's your plans? Do you roll out another one? You know, we've done Leeds now. We're looking at Liverpool. We've not been able to do it in London.
Yeah.
So we've opened in London, but we've had to build 5-6 staff because
Yeah.
you know it's £100 a square foot.
Yes.
100 quid a square foot.
Yeah.
We're probably paying 20-30
Yeah.
across the Leeds and Manchester. So we've got to like build to a certain size before we can do London, but we will do.
Yeah.
I like that idea of people come into our Leeds office now and go, it's completely different to Manchester, but it's the same.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And creating that little brand where people
Yeah.
know what they're getting. What about you for the future? Do you?
So the plan is by the end of this year, that House of Make, as we've called the offices, becomes a training hub, like a central, like HQ. Hence the location being right near the direct train to London, Birmingham, etc. So the plan is we're just working now with some developers and communication experts to develop our online training platform, so that everybody that comes to Make Events has a standard experience. And this is all going back to productivity and future-proofing the business. So then we want to grow geographically, but have here as like the hub where someone would come and train, and all the main ops and facilities would be available here, but people, you know, we would have somebody on the ground in London and Birmingham, etc. So that's the plans for, so kind of geographical stretch will be next year, honing everything we do. Have you read or listened to the E-Myth?
No.
So it's basically this, all the team are listening to it at the moment, and what it's about is creating a business that's a turnkey operation.
Yeah.
That if you sold it tomorrow, somebody could turn the key and they would know how to operate everything. So that's what we're working on at the moment to get standardise everything. And we're growing the venue finding department. As you know, we're recruiting for head of venue finding departments, we know. So I think I know what the long-term vision is, but I tend to think in quite short-term blocks because we don't know what's going to happen externally. So I sort of think 12 months ahead, rightly or wrongly, but I feel that's manageable, and then I'm quite gung-ho and I'll get on with it. So.
And one last question, your competitors?
Yes.
Because I keep mentioning ours, you know, is quite old school. The people you go up against in pitches, what kind of facility are they operating out of?
It's weird because we
don't expect events companies to.
Yeah, there's a great company that's got a really themed office, but themed as in you know, a theme you would have for an event, so maybe a Wild West area or whatever. Yeah. But I'm a bit funny because I think I've told you this. Another book that I've read, The Blue Ocean Strategy, which is about not looking at your competitors. So I don't follow any competitors, and I try not to look at what they're doing because I get like event envy. So if I'd seen they'd done an amazing job that I really wanted to work with, I'd be too busy looking at that, wishing we'd done it, and it would take my eye off the ball. Yeah. So I've always said to the team, like, let's run our own race. You know, treat the people that we might compete with, you know, in a good, nice way. And that's for me the best way that I work. So I don't think the team are even fixated on any competitors, because it's not something that comes into our conversation at all. We just talk about what we're doing, and you know, and I think that allows you to make decisions that are unique and not be influenced by what other people are doing. You just do your own thing. Yeah.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming in again.
Thank you for wanting to speak to me again.
No worries. That's it. That's the end of the podcast for today. Next week will be Candy Cosmetics, Anastasia Kenyon. So speak to you then.